Annette Oxley here for Tack Shack Tactical TV and Ghosts and Girls on Fire for our 16 days of action for no violence against women and children. I welcome a spiritual warrior, Natasha Williams. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us, who is Natasha and what put you on your path today, where you are today? How did it happen?
Doing what I do as a spiritual warrior. I was very shy growing up, and I left home at a young age, put myself through varsity, went traveling, came back, and I was a different person. And I was very successful business-wise, but I kept landing up in relationships that were very not so good for me. And one day I had the dark night of the soul, which was when I found out that my husband was grooming my daughter, who was then 6 years old. And I, at that stage, thought that I was successful, I was independent, I had everything that I ever needed in life. I knew where I was going, I didn't have a man controlling me, I was making my own money, and my whole idea of what a family was, of who I was, where I stood, was gone in that one moment. Because I'd lost my family, I lost my husband, I lost my daughter. She wasn't his biological child. And her father, who was sociopathic, he had been trying to get her for over all the years, not because he wanted to see her. He wanted to get her because he wanted to show me how he can be in control, because I discarded him. That's what toxic people do. And he'd been stalking me for years, and that was just like the final nail in the coffin. And she ended up staying with him, and I had a choice, because I had no friends, no family. I'd been isolated from everybody, and I just was broken. And I thought, if I kill myself, how can I be a mom to her? So she ended up staying with him, and I stayed with my husband, because I needed to find out, what on earth am I doing? Why am I keep attracting these kinds of men in my life? And that led me on the journey to where I am now, to discovering how it all starts in childhood, and how we just keep playing out these patterns all the time. And until you heal your childhood, you're not going to heal your current situation, because you're just going to keep swapping one for the other. They're going to have a different name, a different face, but they're just going to keep having the same
effect, the same results.
Same thing. And then it took me about another 7 years to get out of that relationship. But I was studying him. I didn't come from a point of trusting and believing in anything. And I mean, it's a whole process we go through as well. It wasn't just quick and easy. But I actually started studying everything I could find in those days, and it wasn't that long ago, but she's 26 now, so it was 20 years ago. There wasn't anything about narcissism, or, I looked up bullying, and I thought, oh, he's got bullying behavior, and the gaslighting, I didn't know what that was. So I really had to learn from the ground up and find out, what on earth am I dealing with? And I had to outsmart him. So, yeah, that was kind of in a nutshell. Got lots of stories, but that was one of them.
So you stayed with this man that was grooming your daughter. I'm sure it's not a single incident with your daughter. Was there other incidences, because those people usually don't just do it to one child?
It's interesting, because when I met him, we went on a date, and we ran into his ex-girlfriend who'd been with for 10 years. And she came screaming up towards me, and she said, stay away from him, stay away from him. And I was totally freaked out, because I didn't know who this woman was. And he said to me, no, she's crazy. She's just jealous because she's seeing me with another woman for the first time, and we were together so long, and we didn't have children together. And then I said, well, I want to know why she said that. Why did she say those things? So I actually had a meeting with her. And she told me in that meeting that he had been grooming her child from another relationship from prior. And I thought, well, maybe she's just talking. And I went home and I said, this is all the things she said. And he said, whatever she said is true for her. He didn't deny any of it, but he didn't admit any of it. And that was, you think you know somebody, but they are so good at hiding.
Absolutely. I've had this same discussion with Gerard Labuskaghni, which is the psychologist, the profiler. And he says sometimes when it's happened to other ladies, And when that person comes up to you and say, but it's happened to me, you as a person make excuses and say, no, it can't be. I believe him that she's the crazy one.
Yeah. And then, they always say I'm a new person. I'm not that person they say, but they do. They're either the crazy one or they're the best friends.
So tell me, what is narcissistic abuse? I know that, if I look at all of the programs, and it's a very easy thing for women to say lately is, oh, he's a narcissist. And sometimes it's not true, but a lot of cases it is true. But I think it's a very easy word to throw around. So if you can maybe just go into a little bit of more detail, what is narcissistic abuse?
So let's start with what is a narcissist. I have discovered that we all have heart. We all have heart. We all have feelings. Narcissists don't. Because they suffered some kind of trauma, and I actually think some of it they're genetically born that way. I don't actually think they're made. I think they're born as well. They are unable to feel love. And so they are not able to connect with people on that level. So they're not able to bring their own light. They're not able to perpetuate energy. We can find it. Normal people, well, I call us normal, but we're not normal. We're able to pull light in and we're able to regenerate. They can't, so they feed off others in order to live. And they think that they can find love by literally eating you. If they can take your love, then they can have it. But it doesn't work that way. Love is something that comes from the heart. It's something you give. And because they're not able to love, they're also not able to feel other emotions. They don't feel guilt. They don't feel shame. The only emotions that I've seen them experience are pride, jealousy, and lust, desire. They don't show these other emotions. They don't show fear. They go into these rages. They always got this undercurrent of anger that sits with them.
So they come out over as very nice people. I have met people like that.
It's learned behaviour.
And they actually seem all right, and usually quite over-polite.
Over-polite.
But underneath is these darkness.
So everything they've learned, it's like a Venus flytrap. They look beautiful to try and trap that insect, but it's all learned behavior. I call them AI. They are not, they're like robots. It's like what we're seeing in the world out at the moment.
It's craziness.
It's learned behavior to masquerade as human. It's almost like they're wearing a human body, but they're cold. They're robots inside.
That's such a good description.
And every person they meet, they accumulate more intel, like AI, and now they've got a better vocabulary.
What is those, I think it was at Star Trek, I always get confused between the ones where they have the cyborg, which assimilate you.
Yeah.
It's that assimilation of you as a person.
That's what they do. And that's what a narcissist, so the abuse is just basically, they are there like a black widow spider, or any kind of spider, eating their prey and sucking you dry. And once they've run out of food, then they just leave you and go and find some more food. And they're always looking for food. So the abuse is not necessarily aimed at you, they just don't care.
You're just part of the process of...
You're just food, your fuel, your energy.
That's an excellent way of explaining it. Nobody else explained that before. Tell me, what is let me just go back first. How prevalent is narcissists in the world?
We have it in all societies, especially your patriarchal societies. I mean, look at what's happening with Iran and all these ladies being killed, and I mean it's everywhere. But I think because of the way the world's shifting and we're becoming lighter, it's becoming more transparent and it's becoming more biased. So it's like with anything, you always need to have a balance in life, good and bad, dark and light. And the more the light comes up, the more the dark comes up. The more the dark comes up, the more the light comes up. So it's just becoming more and more transparent.
So, there's information out there which there hasn't been previously. But I listened to a podcast last night, and sometimes it's very good to be on Twitter because there's a lot of information. Sometimes there's an overload of information. And sometimes it actually eats you up because somewhere you have to draw the line, because otherwise there's so much darkness out there that there's people that's really, really dark out there, and I'm sure you live with that every day of your life.
Yeah.
Tell me, I know what PTSD is. What is CPTSD that you're talking about?
So PTSD is just post-traumatic stress disorder that normally happens from one event. Maybe you had a robbery or something. CPTSD is chronic post-traumatic stress. So it's consistent over time. And a lot of people that are in abusive relationships are questioning their mind all the time. There's all these little events that happen, and it takes so much longer to heal from, because what happens when you're exposed to abuse over time is your hypothalamus, which is your part of your brain that converts your short-term into long-term memory, it actually shrinks. So because it shrinks and you're in survival mode all the time, you start becoming forgetful, because it's not converting that short-term memory into long-term memory. And so you start having a fuzzy head, you're not clear, you forget your words, you can't find things, and then they start calling you stupid and forgetful. But it's because of the abuse. And it's so much longer to heal from because your body organs are now misfiring and misfunctioning.
It has a massive physical effect on you in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not a one quick fix. You really have to work on it.
Tell me, lockdown. If I actually look at what lockdown did to people, if you look at what you do today, how much of that is remnants of what happened to lockdown? That people were in relationships with one person that might be that narcissist that's eating you alive.
In a way, I get goosebumps when I think about it. Lockdown to me was a blessing. And I know it sounds like, how could you say that? People are locked in. But it revealed more. It didn't create a problem, it showed the problem. Yeah. It made it more visible. So if you were in a relationship with somebody who's bad and you're now stuck with them, now you really get to see it. So I just think it fast-paced everything. It caused a massive shift in the way people relate, in the way people even go out and do things now. Like socializing to me isn't today what it was a few years ago.
I was with some clients yesterday doing some private training, and I looked at a youngster. She's got no friends because she's now homeschooled, which is in a way not that bad, because some stuff that's happening in the schools are not that great anymore. But that social aspect is basically hidden from her, and I think in a couple of years' time, that young lady is going to have problems because there's social issues.
It is.
She doesn't have that interaction that we grew up with.
My son is also homeschooled now. But even during COVID, when he was at school, he couldn't talk to his friends. He had a kid in his class, he never saw his face because they always had masks on.
Oh, it's taken away a lot of people's identities.
Well, that was their plan, right?
Absolutely. So we live in an extremely stressful environment in South Africa. We're talking about rampant crime. They are really out to get us, unfortunately. Yeah. And then we have this added stress of not having power, and you have to plan your food. Your food goes off. Some people have oxygen that they can't have. I know we had to give our neighbours some power because the lady's an oxygen machine. When you're driving in traffic, it's chaos. If the traffic lights don't work, are you seeing that with your clients currently? That it has an effect? Because I find everybody's so stressed right now in general.
I actually think the biggest stress is finances, because of course it has that knock-on effect. You know, I mean, you can't get to work, you can't have power, you can't create your stove. It just snowballs. Petrol goes through the roof.
Everything else.
But I think the biggest problem, because one of the main abuse tactics is financial control. Yeah. And that is how they make sure you stay dependent. And a lot of the ladies that I find are struggling because they can't get work, they can't leave because they don't have the money, and they get threatened. I had one lady who tried to leave. She was going to see me, and her partner, who she's been with forever, who's of course taken away her self-worth, he slashed her tires. He literally slashed her tires. She couldn't leave. And then he acted like somebody else had done it, but he was hovering around the whole time because we did a Zoom call. He was hovering around to hear what she was saying all the time, and she had to keep talking as if she was going to do something else. But of course he heard she's going to go out and look for work.
That is a big, one of the ladies that we interviewed last year for this program was specifically to do with financial abuse, because if you're poor, you can't get out.
No, that's how they keep you.
Yeah.
And it's not out of love, it's not out of care. It's just because why would you want your food to leave?
Exactly, it's control. It's absolute control over you. One thing that resonated with me when I read some of your main page and your web page, and we will add everything at the end of the video as well, so that people can go and have a look at what you do, is when I've had a talk last year, and I said, when I look in the mirror, I see a warrior. I don't see a victim, but when most ladies look in the mirror, they see a victim. They look at themselves so negatively. And if you can maybe expand on your thoughts on this.
Well, I'll tell you a story. When my daughter was a year and a half, she woke up in the middle of the night and she said, "Mommy, Satan by the door." Now, this is a child who can barely string a few sentences together. She doesn't know the word Satan. And this was at 1 o'clock in the morning. And then she pointed and I said, "What did you just say?" And she said, "There's a man by the door." So of course I couldn't sleep that night. So we watched Teletubbies the whole night. And the next morning I phoned her dad, because we had just split up by that time. And he said, "I'm a bit concerned because I dedicated my firstborn to the devil when I was practicing my demonology." Now, I didn't know anything about this. I knew him 3 months and he made me pregnant, because that's one of their modus operandi. And I was like,
Chills right there.
that's what they do, to trap you. And I thought, well, if he's dedicated his firstborn to the devil, then I'll dedicate my firstborn to God, and let's see who wins. And it's actually from that day, I've been in spiritual warfare. And I had to learn what is going on. I had to learn about forces that people don't talk about. They shove under the carpet. They tell you you're overreacting, you're making it up, because of course they don't see. But I'm that person that said, just bring it on. Bring it on, because you either take me out, or I will take you out. But I'm not going to take you out. I'm just going to say, if you let a weed flourish in your garden, it's going to overgrow. You've got to keep it in check. And my favorite saying is, evil flourishes when good men do nothing.
Absolutely.
And if you just sit back and say, well, it'll get better, don't worry about it. It doesn't get better, they get worse. They get worse. If you give your hand, they take your arm. Give your arm, they take your body. In fact, Johnny Depp said that in the court case. He said, "What else do you want from me? Do you want my life? I've given you everything." And they will say, "Yes, I'll take your life." And now they get across with you because they took your life, and where's your life now? Because it's finished.
The same podcast that I watched yesterday, and the man said, there's not enough people standing up and doing the right thing and speaking up for something that they believe in.
Absolutely.
And that is something that I live my life by. I'm one that do not keep quiet.
Because we live in fear, and they want us to fear.
Yeah. And that's unfortunately, the whole world is in that situation right now. They don't want you to speak up. One of the things that I'm looking at is this positive law. We will tell you what you are going to do with your life. No, you're not going to tell me. I want to live my life like I want to live my life.
Those are narcissists.
Absolutely.
Just on a bigger scale.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, they've been allowed to breed for so long that they've got the power. We need to take it back.
Yeah. And it starts with one person at a time. And that is, one person becomes 2 people, etc., etc. And I hope you can make a difference.
And the thing is, I think you find yourself in a narcissistic relationship in order to find your power. That's how you find it. You don't find it from, lying on the beach and enjoying the sunshine. You find it from learning how to fight.
Yeah.
You find it from learning how to stand up for yourself, to speak up for yourself, to say no.
So what are you doing right now with, you say you're a spiritual warrior. Who do you help with your spiritual warrior?
I've actually got a program that's called Toxic Bonds, and that helps you understand what is a narcissist, how do you recognize them, how do you speak to them, how do you start finding the resource, because it's all within you, it's not about finding it out there, and how do you overcome it by healing your childhood, because your trauma didn't start with a narcissist. They are a mirror. They are not the original cause. The original cause comes from your childhood, where you had to be a people pleaser and a good girl, and allow them so that you could survive. But you keep finding people like that and recreating it. So when you can heal that original abuse, then you stop attracting it. So that's where my focus is in healing. So I do a lot of healing, self-healing work. I've just finished a program now that helps you overcome your money blocks, because that's one of the biggest problems that women have, is they don't know how to find the finance. But a lot of it starts in here. It's not out there, it's inside. They might think I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough. They have this perfection trait. It's not like your book. You want to write, you never have the time. Why don't you ever have the time? If it's important to you, what is taking up your space?
Absolutely. That's, as I said, the podcast yesterday is you need to make time to do things that's important in your life.
Because what's the point in life otherwise?
Absolutely. What is your message? Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, I think we've spoken quite a bit. There's something,
If you have got a message out there for, we've changed 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children to 16 days of action. Because activism, we don't believe that activism works. It doesn't help to say to the abuser, please stop abusing me, because it's not going to happen. We believe that you need to take action yourself, because that's where it starts. What is your message to our viewers out there?
If you want love, it doesn't come from outside of you, it comes from inside of you. Give yourself love. Why must you give it to a middleman in order to get it back? I just don't understand it. So if you're looking for love because you think that person's going to give it, see where you're lacking it in yourself and give it to yourself.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. It was fantastic talking to you, Natasha.
You're welcome.
And
Thank you for inviting me.
And we'll speak in the future, and we'll work together.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I stand proud. I'm a girl on fire. Countless hours on the range, I am responsibly armed. I am your equal. I've empowered myself. I have practiced and trained. Fear won't control me. With my sisters in arms, we will make ourselves heard.